Hello, and thank you everyone for joining Caterpillar Safety Services monthly webinar titled Culture of Correct, Developing a Worldwide Safety System. I'm Rachel Proper with Caterpillar Safety Services, and I'll be facilitating today's event. First, a couple quick announcements. The phone lines are muted, so if you have any questions, please submit them through Q&A or the chat areas of WebEx. We'll use the last 10 to 15 minutes to answer any of your questions that you have for the presenters today. And secondly, the event is being recorded. A link to this recording, including the slide presentation and the audio, will be presented or posted on safety.cat.com within the next day or two, and you will also receive a follow-up email with the link to the site, as well as an invitation to complete a brief survey. Now, I'm honored to introduce today's presenters. First, we have Dr. Mike Williamson. He's a senior safety consultant with Caterpillar Safety Services, and Mike has more than 25 years of experience in the safety profession and works with organizations in a variety of industries to build employee-driven culture excellence. And today, we're very excited to have our guest presenter, who's John Visner. He is our facility manager for Caterpillar Work Tools in Waco, Texas. Just a quick note for everyone that is a Caterpillar employee that's actually listening to this call today. I know there's several of you that have dialed in. The information provided today is intended for general guidance and may be used as a basis for development in a new contractor safety management program. Disregard. Mike, if you want to go ahead and take over, please feel free.
Okay, thank you very much, Rachel and John. Rachel started off well. It is an honor to have John Visner here with us. The Caterpillar manufacturing facilities and dealers are a joy for us to deal with, and they are entering into a new era of safety performance using safety cultural tools, something that hasn't been so much a part of our past. So John's going to be your first-hand experienced person, and I'm going to count on John to carry on most of the conversation because I think you want to find out how a user of safety culture tools addresses the issues and gets his whole organization to go forward. So moving from the cover slide to the next slide, our agenda today really is John's going to talk about his safety difficulties reality, and those of you in the safety world understand coming into a facility that has difficulties. And John, not the safety professional here, but the facility manager, and he's got a pretty interesting scenario. That will then lead to how do you develop a good vision for safety performance, and then turning your visions into actions. And John's going to wrap us up with some of the things he learned and how you may apply them as well, and then we'll go to Q&A after that. So next slide then. John, typical safety difficulty scenario, you're on.
All right, well, good morning. It's just great to have this opportunity to share some of our successes here in Waco. I guess a little background to start off with. Looking back about 2010, coming out of the recession, we were down to about 54 employees on one shift on this campus. Over the next 3 years after that, we really grew very tremendously, ended up with about 240 employees working 3 shifts. So here in Waco, we build 3 product lines. We build excavator buckets, which was the first product we introduced on this campus. 2010, we ramped up and started introducing couplers to the workforce. And then most recently, we added hydraulic hammers, which we built a new facility for, and then introduced new product from 2011 to 2013. So a lot of production demands, a lot of growth. We did have a lot of employee turnover during the same period. Last year we experienced almost 30% turnover. From a safety professional standpoint, we did not have any on the campus until mid-2012. So a lot of that demand went to our section managers and our manufacturing engineers and black belts to help lead our safety initiatives. So needless to say, it really overwhelmed all of our resources.
Okay. John, about sales volume, approximate sales volume for your facility?
Last year, right around $100 million for this campus.
So this is not a small facility that, there's a lot of income that comes here, not only to the corporation, but to the local area. And tell us a little bit about the employees that, when you showed up and were starting up, What kind of employees were available to you out of the local labor market?
Well, this area used to be very predominantly mobile home manufacturing. They definitely came from a culture of production first. So we always had a lot of challenges. We hire a lot of welders and machinists, and trying to convince them that we were serious about safety first has always been a challenge for us. So that's definitely some of the issues that we face with the upgrowing the new workforce.
I think that this is fairly common, again, as safety professionals and facility managers come to a new site. They see that a very different culture than what they've seen before. And for the most part, we see cultural challenges, and one of them predominantly is in safety. We're going to get a chance to see some of John's safety numbers later on. You can see, wow, he did have some challenges. And the real question then is, how do you address that safety culture reality and do something about it? So, next slide. Now, a little bit about the Caterpillar approach to safety excellence. Generally, what we do is we go to a facility like John's in Waco, Texas, and we explain to the people some models, and you're going to see those here in the next couple of minutes. What causes injuries, 6 criteria of safety excellence, 6 levels of safety performance, and the like. What we try and do is explain to people really the underlying causes of injuries that go way beyond glasses and gloves and tripping hazards and the like. They really head straight to what the culture is. Some of you that have been on this webinar circuit here with us in the last couple of years will have seen some of these models before. But then from once the explanation to the audience, John will pick up and talk about really how it applied to where he was. So we talk about, next slide, that incidents really, as we toggle through these, are caused by at-risk behaviors. A lot of research out there that shows well over 90% of injuries typically come from at-risk behaviors. And toggling again, those are kind of a result of attitudes, beliefs, and ideas of not just the hourly employees, but where do the hourly employees get their direction? From supervision. And where does supervision get their direction from? Management. So if we toggled, it's kind of the norm of your organization. John talked a little bit about that as he was describing when he showed up what kind of people were available to him. And if we toggle once more, that's really the culture. And part of it is the culture of the local area that you're in, but part of it also is definitely the culture of the company and the organization that you have. And so one more toggle is we look at why injuries can happen. Truly, we think the root causes deal with culture and norms, and those lead to ideas, beliefs, and attitudes that exist in the workplace that influence the behaviors of our people that lead to incidents. Now, there's another piece that comes with this. There's local culture, but there's also company culture. And John, could you give us a brief insight into Caterpillar safety culture from, once again, from a user and a applier? What type of influence, pressures, realities do you see with a company that Caterpillar and their attention to safety?
Yes, definitely with Caterpillar. I think with the introduction of the CAP production system, back in 2006, we've had a good mindset for safety first. But I think what we were missing is really the demonstration and the showing our employees that we really do have a safety first culture. So as we go through this presentation and future slides, I think we'll be able to show how some of our actions and our activities really help demonstrate a new safety culture.
Any pressures from corporate to reduce injuries, John?
Oh, definitely. RIF is the primary result that is looked at from our executive office, and there's definitely a lot of pressure to minimize recordable injuries.
Right, RIF being recordable injury frequency. And a few webinars ago, our corporate safety manager, Brian Llewellyn, and I had a presentation about Caterpillar's safety journey that's gone on, and their objective, Caterpillar's objective for 2020 is a recordable injury frequency of 0.6. And so there's definitely attention to what does it take to get there, not from a punitive standpoint, but a kind of a relentless pursuit of we don't injure our employees, and that's a value and a principle of the company. I know many of you in the audience have that same culture, that same reality, and by the way, that same pressures that come with that. So changing the slide again to 6 criteria of safety excellence, one of our fundamental approaches comes from Dan Peterson, a truly famous industrial safety person in the last 50 years. And Dan said there was really kind of only 6 things you needed to do to be good in safety. If you take a look at these top 4, top management visibly committed, middle management actively involved, frontline supervision focused on performance and safety, the same way they're focused on productivity and quality on the front line, and then active participation from the hourly employees, you can see that the real push here is that we have an engagement and participation across all levels of the organization that puts safety on the top rung of the ladder. This is the culture, and without this commitment and involvement, the safety culture really does not change. And so that leads to accountabilities and activities across the whole organization that are focused in on not reacting to injuries, but to proactively removing the obstacles that lead to injuries. And some of these are conditional, and some of them are attitudes, and some of them behaviors, and some of them are, wow, I didn't even recognize that was an issue. There's flexibility that goes with that, and then the perception of the workforce is paid attention to. What do they do well? What don't they do well? What are their attitudes? And that leads to some interviews to find out more than just conditions, but what's between the ears of our people. And when the Caterpillar safety consultant comes in, they train this and teach this to not only upper management, but frontline employees, supervision, and hourly employees. John, your experience with these 6 criteria.
Yes, I guess we've always had some good visibility, but we really escalated that with our interaction with CAT Safety Services, including all the way up to our general manager and North American operations manager. We're very involved when we launched some of our new initiatives with CAT Safety Services. With middle management, we always gave them a result, and then really didn't give them a lot of tools to get that result. So really helping define those activities and what we expect from them, so their performance is more based on what they do versus that end result. Our employee participation is probably the highest I've ever seen it in any facility that I have worked in. We measure now a lot of the activities our employees do to really show that all of our employees are participating. As we go through some of the future slides, but the flexibility, the way we manage our steering team, we're very reactive, and I really see a huge positive trend from the workforce.
So when you come into an area like what you did, John, you've got to overcome some issues in the workforce that they're not used to this. And, that also deals with your management staff and the like. Any comments on, wow, here's a whole different approach to safety, and how do we get that to live at the front line and in the offices as well?
It definitely takes a lot of education. Just similar to our production employees, we started a few years ago with 1 supervisor, and now we have 8. So it's a whole new training experience for everyone. But definitely a lot of education, a lot of revisiting expectations. Our safety steering team, we review a lot of our improvements that we've done to make sure that they're sticking. It just takes a lot of effort and focus to stick with it.
Thank you, John. So truly, right away then, there is upper management that has to become visible and active in the safety initiative. And if you look at these 6 criteria, you'll also see that this is how you run a business. As you're trying for productivity and quality, where's top management, where's middle management, and the like. So major shift in how organizations work here. Rachel, Power came back on. Those of you in the audience, I had a power outage in my area, and I've been working off of a different system. And so now Rachel's back in charge. So our 6 levels of safety, here's another tool that we use. And part of what we discussed with John is that we're going to show you approaches that will engage your people, and so your whole culture then becomes an engagement culture. And our first level or tool of safety deals with reacting to the conditions in the workplace. These are compliance issues, guarding and housekeeping and safety work orders and glasses and gloves. And if that's all you do, high injury rates. But if you don't get this done, then all the traps in the workplace that people can get injured on are there. And so pretty much you've got to start with the fundamentals to improve your safety culture. The next item or the next tool, the next level, deals with reacting to what we see in the workplace, near-miss inspections, job safety analysis, etc. And once again, reactionary, important, we must do it. If it's not right and we see it, we have to do something about it. But we need to really get out of the reactive mode. That's kind of what that safety culture model was talking about. And so that then leads to level 3, which is safety accountabilities. John talked about that and the 6 criteria as well. It started leading to activities, proactive items that people do to eliminate the possibility of injuries. And what are we going to work on? That leads to kind of level 4. And level 4 is a diagnostic that is a safety perception survey or interviews. Some cases we do surveys, some cases interviews, some cases both. And a couple of slides from now, we're going to talk about how the interview process went to find out really what the root cause issues are for safety at a particular facility or corporation. And then the next level then is level 5. And level 5 is continuous improvement teams, and that's really what John's going to be talking about. How did he engage his people in resolving their issues and developing a culture of correct? That leads to level 6, which is a workforce that is just committed, a leadership, hourly and salaried, to whatever the issue is, we're going to fix it. We find it, and we fix it, and then we move on. So kind of the 6 levels of safety is part of our training, and it's a part of developing a culture that just doesn't have injuries, not from a punitive standpoint, but from an engagement and an analytical standpoint. Then let's go back to the next piece, which is a comment from Dr. Peterson. It's culture, not elements, that determine safety success. John, any comments on these 6 levels and 6 criteria and the like, and how you implemented that into your facility?
I guess definitely as we've been more successful at the higher levels, much more participation, much more, like, as we said, defined activities and holding people accountable to those. We have definitely seen our metrics improve because we're focused on those active participation items in developing that culture.
Thank you. It's about culture, and it's about a culture of correct and about living that culture of correct with activities and accountabilities. And that'll lead to our next slide, where really now we've had some models that we've explained, and when we go into a workforce, we have some safety culture implementation and improvement tools. The START program, supervisor training and accountability and recognition techniques, is a global program that explains what safety culture is, what excellent safety culture is, and how you get there, and how it's very much different from kind of the normal reactive safety culture. Speak Up and Listen Up deal with how do you have effective safety communications on the front line. How do you give people feedback so they pay attention to it? And if somebody gives you feedback, how do you absorb that feedback and change the way your safety culture and activities are? Near-miss resolution. Notice it's not near-miss reporting, but it's resolution. So we find it and we fix it. Not just a matter of reporting it, but engaging our people to resolve that. And then rapid improvement workshops, a Caterpillar approach to engage people in excellence and resolving their issues. John, comments on this type of training that is kind of a second step in improving your safety culture?
Just to reiterate, we did have a lot of education. Starting off, our steering team went through several days of training. We used the Safety Cultural Excellence Workshop, and we trained our entire management team in some of these tools, like the Excellence Workshop, so that our entire team was on the same page, even our support staff, not just our frontline supervisors. We did utilize the START training. Again, that was a very good session that we used for our entire management team to get them on the same page with what we're trying to do with our culture. Some of these other things, rapid improvement workshops, we've always been very good at using those for productivity improvements, but now we're using those for those safety culture improvements as well. Speak Up, List Up was a great thing for us. We rolled that out with one of our rapid improvement workshops, focused on observations, and really took the employee feedback to one another to an all-new level.
Good, thank you. The rapid improvement workshops are a part of the Caterpillar production system, and what it is a continuous improvement engagement, and it's one of the ways we move safety from being a bolt-on is to move it into the mainline approach for how you run manufacturing and dealership facilities, and that's rapid improvement workshops that have people solving their own problems, and now safety's that's just a part of the way we live, and that integrates it into the culture. The next slide down goes into a safety steering team. This is a different approach to safety. Sure, there are safety meetings that occur at the front line, but this is a strategic area where we have hourly and salary leadership that looks not just reacting to the most recent incident, but has a strategy looking to the future and works through the frontline safety issues and develops a solution to them and then rolls it across the whole facility. So next slide then deals with what frequently another tool that I hope is familiar to many of you, purpose outcome process. And here, the Safety Steering Committee or Safety Steering Team, what's our purpose? And this is kind of an example of a typical statement. John, you saw this and made some modifications to it. Give us your input on this, please.
Yes, I guess we've always had a safety committee that was really looking more at hindsight of what had happened and initiating a lot of activities or a lot of initiatives, but not a lot of action that was tangible. So we definitely, as we implemented our new safety steering team, much more proactive in our planning. What are those next opportunities one at a time that we need to get good at? Just really focusing our team on that next priority versus trying to solve all the world problems at one time.
So talk to us about shotgun versus targeted, John.
I guess prior to working with Cat Safety Services, I was counted up one of our report outs to one of our vice presidents from a couple of years ago, and counted a dozen initiatives that we were doing at one time. So really, every time we had recordable injuries, we felt we had to add something else to people's plates. So instead of getting really good at one thing, we were trying to do a lot of things at one time. So definitely, this new approach, we focused on one element at a time, ensure that it was embedded throughout the organization before we moved to the next item.
In a way, that's kind of difficult because we all want to do everything right now for everybody. And we're saying that a normal organization that is trying to improve their safety culture doesn't do 10 initiatives a year. They do kind of 2 or 3, but they put together a team. That team works through and delivers a solution. That solution is piloted, then it's rolled across the organization, and it's embedded, as John talked about, and it becomes a part of their culture, and then it's time to launch the next one. You just can't do everything for everybody, but the safety steering team picks what are the priorities that make the most difference to the particular facility or culture out there, and each of them picks something different because they understand the culture. Let's take a look at the next slide, which focuses in on outcomes. We had a purpose, and now the outcomes are our deliverables. And talk to us a little bit about the deliverables that you had, John.
I guess to start off, we kind of took that broad cross-functional team of hourly employees up to our management team and really just brainstormed what were the key areas that we wanted to focus on. I narrowed that down into our first priority, and it turned out to be safety within our startup meetings and really reevaluating startup meetings, which was not my first choice that I thought would make the biggest impact, but coming from our employees, it definitely did make a big impact. So one of the things that we like to do is review those previous RIW projects and make sure that those things are sticking and the outcomes that we identified for each of those teams is still embedded within our team.
So the safety steering team also monitors what's going on in the field, not so much from reacting to injuries and incidents, but how is this initiative going? What's the feedback from the people on the front line? How does it fit in with the next initiative we're going to work on? And the outcomes are always deliverables, things that will make a difference. Let's take a look at the process piece that goes with this, purpose, outcomes, process. And here, John, once again, I'm going to turn it over to you, but I have a question. How many people on the safety steering team, and kind of give me their background, hourly, supervision, et cetera?
So we have about 12 people. We have a couple hourly employees, some hourly team leads, a couple frontline supervisors, myself, our safety EHS professional. And for the first year, from the time we started training through the first year, my boss, our North American operations manager, and then his boss, our general manager, also participated with our safety steering team. So very cross-functional, definitely show the top-down commitment from our leadership team, from the top guy within Work Tools, and we really focused on what our hourly employees brought to the table, what they needed, and prioritized with more focus on what they were bringing to the committee.
John, kind of another question that goes with this. I see at the bottom your year one objectives. A couple of comments on those, please.
Yes, we talked all about training already. That was definitely the baseline to get us started. But the first 3 RIWs that we did start off with startup meetings. We've always done startup meetings, kind of had a prescription from our CAP production system process improvement dialogues that we trained everybody to. But with this first Rapid Improvement Workshop team, we really have a much more engaging, two-way conversation, a lot more recognition peer-to-peer within our teams. So really a lot more engagement because of our changes to the startup meetings. Safety observations, I'll describe the old process as more of a spy process. I'm going to go look and see what you're doing, but I'm not going to talk with you. I'm just going to kind of write down what I see. Not a lot of interaction. We talked about we gave the speak up, listen up training. Now we have what we call safety contacts. We have direct feedback from employee to employee. And the last one we just did a couple months ago, the incident analysis, really focused on more participation when there is a safety incident, whether it's a near miss or an injury, bringing more awareness, and then focusing on root causes and corrective actions.
That sounds very thorough. One other question. You had upper-level assistance that most organizations don't get. So these are off-site upper managers that become a part of your safety steering team. Can you talk a little bit about the dynamic there? Because most people don't get this opportunity that you got.
I think a lot of it stemmed from the pressures to improve our metrics, but they became very engaged. The upper managers above me did come to Waco to participate in all the training that we conducted, and then they dialed into each of our monthly safety steering teams, really just to help reinforce the improvements that were being made, the actions that were being taken. They didn't get real involved in giving their opinions and guidance, but just really help recognize the efforts of the team and help promote the leadership commitment to safety.
You know, that's visible upper management commitment, and wow, with that type of participation, there's no doubt which direction you're headed. So, and you got positive reinforcement for things that you're doing, a model shift for many organizations. Very good. Let's take a look at the next step then. Typically, we do a safety perception survey. Once again, those of you that are in the audience that have seen the approach we use, 20 safety categories or processes that are statistically validated as to making a noticeable difference in safety. This is where we normally start, but not always. On occasion, it's come in and let's do interviews and let's have a discussion, and we'll pick initiatives, and then we'll get around to the survey. John, in your case, what happened here?
Yes, so the first time our CAT Safety Services consultant came to Waco, he met a lot of one-on-one time with our frontline supervisors, a lot of our production employees as well, conducted some small group discussions just to get a good idea of some of these same elements, the same categories, but we had just completed a lot of our surveys from the employee opinion survey and other things. We didn't want to launch another survey at our employees, so we did choose to conduct a lot of interviews and small group discussions. Got a lot of the same information out of those and allowed us to really focus on those few priorities that we needed to.
Good. Yeah, the survey gives us what we would call quantitative data. This is the number. Here's the issues that you need to work on, and the interviews give us qualitative data. Tell me about this particular issue. And so explained what these categories or processes were, went out into the field and asked questions about it, not yes-no questions, but tell me about questions. And from that, really a pretty good understanding what your organizational issues are, and that then leads to the safety steering team and the rapid improvement workshops.
So our plan is to roll this survey out here in another couple months. It'll give us a good snapshot of what we've accomplished and give us the next focused areas for the coming year.
Thank you. Yeah, you don't have to injure anybody to figure this stuff out. So we found worldwide, no matter what language, no matter what culture, this hits down to root causes. Okay, go ahead. So now, you heard about the Caterpillar production system, its continuous improvement work, and typically it stems from Deming's work and some others in developing global quality excellence. And a model that's often used by the global quality excellence people is Plan, Do, Check, Act. And it turns out that in safety, this same approach is viable. It works well. So let's take a look at the next slide. And here's kind of the overall model. Haven't really seen this used in safety much, but as a part of digging deeper to find out what the real issues are, the Plan, Do, Check, Act model really uncovers a lot of things that make a difference when you work on. So planning is kind of a risk analysis piece. Let's take a look at the next slide. And what are the hazards and controls, legal requirements, objectives, targets, programs, and the like? And so a typical RIW, Rapid Improvement Workshop, would be job safety analysis, job briefings, even in the whole area of procurement. What are we bringing into our organization? From the quality group, it was, how do we improve the quality of it? But there's a lot of safety in procurement as well. And so kind of typical initiatives in the plan area, it's a risk analysis, and then what are we going to do about it? Let's do the next slide deals with what are we going to do once we've seen our plan. And so kind of looks like the Safety Steering Committee, and where are they going to work on? So we've planned, and now we go out and do some implementation, operating procedures, emergency response, and kind of the typical level 1 lockout, tagout, personal protective equipment issues and the like, the foundational pieces. We're going to do those with our people, and that then leads to the next one, which is check. And here, how do we find out, once we've done an implement, how do we find out how effective that is? And in this area, things we look at, near-miss reporting, incident investigations, the walkthrough, the observations that go with that. And so what we're doing is looking at each phase of Plan, Do, Check, Act. And in those phases, then, the rapid improvement workshops pick off issues that make a difference in that phase and are error-proofing safety processes the same way we error-proof quality and productivity processes. So we go to the upstream process that delivers the downstream result, and we error-proof that process, and that includes accountabilities and activities that people have. We need to check on those to see that indeed they are being done. And we're going to take a look at the kind of the next piece of it, and then John, I'd like you to talk about the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, especially the check piece, because when you go out into the workforce and you put in these accountabilities and you've done these rapid improvement workshops, are they sticking or not? So next toggle then from a management review standpoint is safety meetings, goals, objectives, indicators, and the like. And I think you'll find that John has significantly changed his safety meetings, and the goals and objectives no longer focused on RIF, recordable injury frequency, but focused in on activities that deliver solutions, not activities just for the sake of activities, but activities that make a difference in performance. Okay, John, you're on.
And I guess going back to the whole process, from the planning side of it, we're definitely getting a lot more engagement, especially with job safety analysis from our employees, updating our safety FMEAs that we rolled out many years ago, getting just really more input to get those planning pieces to the level that our employees had input to and are much more robust. If you look at Do, definitely updating standard work procedures. We have a much more robust emergency response plan. Really just getting those elements in place, our safety programs, to the level they need it to be. You kind of wanted me to emphasize on check. We definitely have initiated most of our RIWs around some of the elements you spoke about, incident investigation, our observations, near-miss reporting. All those things we've seen a huge improvement in. If I look at our near-miss reporting, we've seen that grow from a minimal amount, even less than the number of recordable injuries we used to have, to tenfold more near-miss reporting than our injury rates. It's a great improvement there. And then this last slide here with our ACT, our safety steering team compared to our safety committee, great improvements. Definitely focused on executing the activities and actions that are needed for success, and really no focus on the recordable injury frequency.
That's a huge shift, and an extremely important one, because what we're after is not, you're going to react to things that occur, but what you want to do is be proactive, and you need to do something other than just stay in the reactive mode. Give me a brief soundbite, John, on near miss, because you mentioned there's a huge shift there, and there's always been an interest in near miss from our audience in webinars. So approximately how many near misses did you have reported beforehand, and kind of what's the new safety culture now with respect to it?
I would guess, but back in 2011, 2012, we probably had a total of maybe 20 near miss reported in an entire year. We probably see anywhere from 5 to 10 near misses reported in a week. So I think people used to think of near misses as something I'm going to get disciplined for or something to hide, but definitely with the safety culture changing, people are not afraid to bring those things up, and we can really help address issues before they become big problems.
So going from 20 to 400 or 500 is a huge shift. It truly is engagement of your people. And when you go to resolution as to just reporting, huge change in the safety culture as well. Congratulations. Wow, that's a good story. Okay, Rachel, let's look at the next slide. And so some lessons learned. And I think probably this is another one, John, that the audience would rather hear you talk about your lessons learned at the Waco Work Tools facility than listen to me talk about something else. So you're on, John.
All right, I guess starting with that first bullet point, I can't iterate enough. Educating the workforce is definitely the foundation. Everybody has to understand what we're trying to achieve with the safety culture to get us to where we need to be. Tools, whether safety perception survey or group discussions or one-on-ones, really determining what some of that data is to really drive what those improvements need to be. Safety steering team, again, that happened very early on and is needed to help give the guidance and direction to the campus on what we need to focus. I guess more importantly, going through the Plan, Do, Check, Act, we talked about the shotgun approach versus one initiative. That is probably the number one thing I'd like to really drive home today. You got to get one thing right before you go to the next one. We spent 3 to 4 months following each RIW to get it embedded, followed up on, and ensure that it was to the point that we were comfortable that it was going to be embedded in the organization. That kind of goes on with the piloting. You can't just roll this out and expect everybody to get it. You need to focus on one area, get the bugs worked out, and really just allow the team to fully error-proof what you want to accomplish with that process. Accountability. Again, I think in the past we used to define accountability as here's a result, why aren't you hitting it? Now really following what we learned in the START training, defining the expectation, training people to what they need to do for that expectation, measuring the results, and again, measuring more of the activities, not the reportable injuries. So what activities do we want, really holding people accountable to those activities, and then recognizing our successes from there. We could not have made this transition without the help of an outside resource like Cat Safety Services. It really brought in that third party to help us think differently. After about 12 months, we did transition to our own resources, able to run rapid improvement workshops, utilizing existing black belts and our safety associate to really take us on down the journey for years to come.
Okay, thank you. Then let's take a look at the next slide. This is the wrap-up, probably what you've all been waiting for. And John, you may have covered part of this before, but okay, we've taken it from start to finish, salient points that would allow us to wrap this up.
I'll just kind of re-highlight a little bit here. We're really going through one of those many initiatives to improve safety metrics. That really just led our whole team to a lot of frustrations and the word chaos there on the screen. You can really overwhelm your employees if you try to do too many things at one time. Really, so after stepping back, really focusing on one item at a time, it helped us create that vision of what we wanted to do, develop our action items, and then really be able to start planning for what we want to accomplish in the future. So we already have our next rapid improvement workshop identified. We still anticipate a large number of onboarding of employees, so we're going to focus on those onboarding processes, ensuring that our employees are trained properly in those first few weeks of coming to the campus. So looking through the in general there, again, cannot iterate it enough. Focus on one process at a time. Really focus on the accountability of the activities. Really driving that personal involvement. Define the activities from the shop floor all the way up to the top management on the campus. Safety meetings, we talked a lot about those. They need to be more proactive, but also holding people accountable to past projects. And really the relentless focus and commitment by the leadership team for the improvements. And last, I'll say it again, celebrate. We don't do enough celebration. When you have successful teams, let the teams know it.
Okay, thank you. And next slide. These are your numbers, John. You got some ugly ones and some good ones. Explain this journey, please.
Yeah, so just wanted to highlight the journey here. Back in 2005 is when we first introduced the Waco campus to work tools. So you can see there we start off in double-digit RIF numbers, recordable injuries. We had a pretty stable workforce from 05 to 08. About 80 people on the campus is all. And we saw the RIF improve naturally down to less than 2. But starting in 2009, coming out of the recession, into 2010, we grew rapidly from just over 50 people to ending 2012 with almost 240. So you saw the RIF numbers there are climbing faster than our employment numbers. We ended 2012 at 9.5. We knew it was time that we needed to do different things. That's when we engaged Cat Safety Services to help us refocus. 2013, we still saw a lot of growth. We're currently about 270 employees on this campus. In 2013, we experienced almost 30% turnover. So we finished the year with about 1/3 of our employees new to Caterpillar, but we still were able to make a significant dent in our safety results, going from 9.5 down to 3.3. Not where we want to be, for sure, but definitely we feel that the tide has turned, the culture's in place, and we're starting to see that positive trend that we want to see.
Okay, thank you, John. Some difficult times, that's for sure. All right, let's take a look at the next slide. Here, John has talked about this. This is a journey. It's a process. It's kind of like going out and farming your fields. You prepare the soil. You remove the weeds. You add some fertilizer to get things growing. You engage your people in fixing what needs to be fixed, and along the line, later on a crop appears, and you can start harvesting this crop. And it requires the total engagement of your people from top to bottom. And if you ever walk away from this field, it just goes back to where it was before, not right. And so these safety journeys and developing a culture of correct take time, and they take effort across your organization, and you're never out of a safety culture that stays focused in on delivering the fruit of no injuries that you want to reap every day. So just kind of a wrap on that. Okay, Rachel, next one. Questions. Here we go. We've got about 10 or 15 minutes left for questions. And Rachel, we're turning this back over to you so you can ask them.
Okay, so if anyone has questions, since the phone lines are muted, please go ahead and use the chat area or the Q&A area within WebEx. We have had a few submitted already, so I'll go ahead and ask them, and then Mike and John, feel free to answer as you see fit. The first one is, if the safety personnel see a supervisor who does not buy into the program, how do they push this information to the management, up the management ladder?
John, that's a good question for you, because you hired all kinds. Remember, you went from 1 supervisor now to 8, and you probably have seen interesting spectrum in safety performance, safety belief, safety engagement. How do you get the right supervisors with the right attitudes?
Well, I guess you don't always get it right. We've had taken disciplinary action against supervisors, and even separated some supervisors. So you want to work with your team. We provide a lot of training, a lot of one-on-one dialogue, a lot of just ongoing coaching, and a lot of that coaching needs to happen firsthand on the shop floor, observing, giving feedback, and just really try to develop each individual. Everybody, like you said, comes in here with different backgrounds, different gaps, different understandings of what they think a culture should look like. So really that education, get people on the same page, and then followed up by one-on-one coaching.
Your frontline leadership is really what delivers the results from your organization. They're critical to performance, to quality, and to safety. And when you hire them, you certainly don't want to get rid of them. Yet, just like with quality and productivity, they must fit your culture that says, this is what we do here. And sometimes you come into an area that has a culture that doesn't pay much attention to safety, because that hasn't been the way they've been hired or paid or reviewed in the past. And there's some struggles in that, because you're changing their culture as well. So the objective is not to fire them, but as John talked about, we're going to have discussions, we're going to do development activities, and you need to understand this is our culture. It is number one. And if you want to keep working here, this is the type of leadership we need you to do. My guess is you didn't really separate many of these people. They need a job. They understand that what they have to perform, and if you lay it out well and coach them well, they end up being good performers in that area. Done much separation or a little?
No, we really only in 4 years we have separated 2, but we've really coached for many years before we get to that point. Definitely a lot of turnover in our management ranks. We have a lot of good folks that are willing to make the changes they need. And again, as long as you're providing that feedback, you can't avoid the topic, you can't sugarcoat it. You got to make sure that your management team is understanding of what's expected, and then you hold them to that.
Sounds like speak up and listen up. Here's I got to give you feedback, and you got to pay attention to it, and together we're going to deliver zero, just like we deliver zero scrap. You're dealing with adults, I found kind of worldwide, that once you set the expectations and you reinforce it and you coach, you get that the overwhelming majority of the time. Next question, Rachel.
Yeah, this is a great question. They would like to know if you can share some specifics around the 6 criteria. For example, what are some of the examples of visible commitment of leadership, and what are some examples of middle management actively involved, and the like?
John, I'll take a shot at this one, too. You're the practitioner here.
I guess leadership commitment, I think with the upper management team actively involved in our steering team, made a big impact. With our hourly employees on that team, they take that message back out to the shop floor with them. Whenever our management team, again, above me, is even in town, we spend a lot of time in the shop talking one-on-one with employees. A lot of the conversation is around safety. Employees here on the campus see myself, the group managers, in the shop every single day. There's a lot of opportunity for them to interact. We try to spend a lot of our monthly all-employee meetings talking about our safety initiatives and recapping what we're doing, and really, again, just reinforcing those positive activities. So a lot of just visible. They have to be able to see you to give you the feedback, and if you're up in your office all day long, they can't see that.
That's a good point, in that what I found when we run these safety steering teams worldwide, there's a huge impact from the hourly employees that are on them. When they go back to their work unit, work cell, their fellow employees say, "You met with who? What did they do? Are these guys real?" And it leads to a significant credibility opportunity for upper management, because all of a sudden you become vulnerable as an upper-level manager, because your hourly employees are giving feedback to the front line. And that, in turn, sends a message that safety truly is important. And when we start talking about the initiatives you're working on, that feedback of, well, what are they doing on these initiatives, comes into play. So the safety steering team makes a huge difference in this area. Any other comments, Sean?
No, I think that kind of sums it up. Again, it's really, when we say visible, it's to me pretty clear. It's you got to be present and really interacting with all levels of the organization, and primarily your guys on the shop floor.
Good. I found in previous career opportunities that when I was in charge of operations, I needed to spend about an hour a day on the front line. And I couldn't get improvement initiatives or safety initiatives to occur if I spent my time in the office answering all the corporate emails and phone calls and meetings that occur with managers. I had to pretty much just pull myself out of the office, and not always the same work group and not always the same time, but always some presence at the front line. And when I found that when I didn't do that, I got feedback from the hourly employees saying, "We need you out here. You make a difference, and a positive difference." So, good. Rachel, next question.
Yeah, this one is on near miss. So, John, I think it'll be for you too. They ask, what do you attribute to the big rise in near miss reports? Were incentives part of your recipe, and how are near misses reported and tracked?
We didn't really incentivize near miss report. I think we just encouraged it. We did roll out what we call safe behavior expectations, and part of that we talked a lot about reporting near misses, how that can help lead us to fixing problems early. A lot of our near misses we still report through our same safety incident database that an injury gets reported in, but we are piloting right now some simpler methods. We still want to capture all those, but we don't necessarily want to drive as much of the paperwork that goes along with that. We want to make sure that the incident is captured and that we give that feedback to the whole campus on what's happened with those near misses, allow us to collect the data to generate those next ideas for improvements. But really just through the constant encouragement of our employees and then reacting to those near misses with a team out there on the shop floor to help address them just shows that we're committed to fixing things even at the near miss level.
Yeah, that's good, John. Another part of that question dealt with incentives, which people typically view as money, and I'd like to hear your input on incentives, and then I'd like to give a little bit of mine as well. So, incentive reality, John.
I guess in this particular case, the incentive was seeing action taken. We do have safety metrics within our hourly bonus program. We have a gain sharing program for our production folks. We moved a couple of years ago from measuring the number of recordable injuries to proactive safety metrics like observations, safety continuous improvement ideas generated. So we do incentivize some with money through our bonus program to help promote some of that activity. We also like to celebrate with our rapid improvement workshop teams when we do have successes, even milestones with some of our safety metrics, whether it's providing meals on campus or a T-shirt. I think people appreciate those things as well.
Good. And so it's not really about money. Certainly inside the regulatory world, OSHA, there's been a lot of discussion about incentivizing low injuries, which hides injuries, and in fact there's even litigation going on with respect to that now. And one of the principles of Caterpillar is that we don't pay people for injuries or a lack of injuries. Most of it deals with one-on-one contact. If you're part of a team, there's a T-shirt that goes with that. What John described is it's upstream activities that deliver less injury rates, and less injury rates are not a part of an incentive system inside the Caterpillar world and the culture. It's about engagement of people. So good answers, John. Thank you very much. Rachel, you got another one? We got time for maybe one more.
Yep, we only have just a couple minutes left, and there are multiple questions, so I apologize in advance if your question doesn't get answered. And if there is a question that you have that's urgent, please feel free to email us afterwards, and we'd be happy to get that addressed. But the last question here, and Mike, I think this one's actually for you. When you had the safety perception slide up, someone was wanting you to explain the difference between what we would consider safety climate and a safety attitude. Okay,
good. Kind of the best way is to look at the questions that map to that. So safety climate, do supervisors, are they well supported by management with their decisions with respect to safety? Are employees influenced by your company's efforts to promote safety? What about rules and regulations? You got lots of those. That's kind of the climate. Do employees participate in setting goals for safety? Do you take prompt action to correct the problems found during inspections? Are you ever asked to do something that's just not safe? So do you have trouble getting support? Do supervisors really encourage you to work safely? Do your coworkers support the company's safety program? And you can see, well, that's kind of like a safety climate. And then if I looked at safety attitudes, attitude towards safety, do you think penalties should be assessed for safety and health violations? Do your company's safety rules and regulations protect the employees? Are risks involved sometimes overlooked in order to get the job done? And back, are supervisors supported by management in their safety issues? Are you interested in how your division works with respect to safety compared to other companies and divisions? Is safety considered important by management? So attitudes and climate. I hope that answers the question. There's a few more questions that go here to each of them, but I think that gives you an idea of the spirit of the question.
Okay.
Back to you, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you everyone for attending. If you pay attention to the current slide that is up, we have a very exclusive webinar offer for everyone who attended today. Our START program we're offering exclusively to webinar participants for 30% off, which is significant because this is almost a $3,000 program. So if you use the coupon code webinar0219, you can go on to our website, safety.cat.com, in the shopping section. If you find START and plug in that coupon code, you will get 30% off. So that will expire on March 18th, so please go ahead and take advantage of that now. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us. As a reminder, we will be sending out an email to all registrants within the next couple days with a recording and a survey link, which I also provided in the chat section. If you get a moment to provide feedback, we greatly appreciate it. And we hope you all can make next month's webinar, which we will be promoting in the follow-up email. So thank you all so much for attending, and thank you, John and Mike, for the presentation.
One last item, Rachel.
Yes.
I'd like to especially thank John. He's taken a day out of his busy work schedule to prepare for this and to give the webinar, and I appreciated the frontline feedback. You did a great job, John. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's a contact incentive. No money here, John. Thank you, and
thank
goodbye
you, everyone.
To the audience. This was a good webinar. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.